Hello, beautiful sensitive souls, and welcome back to Surviving to Thriving, where we address how to move from struggle and frustration and just barely surviving in a world that's too big, too fast, too busy, probably too loud, just overall too much, to a place of calm and actually thriving as highly sensing people. I'm your host and sensory coach, Tammy Goen, and I'm so glad you're here as always. And this month, we'll be talking about our needs and strengths and leadership in the workplace. And I have a little bit of a different quote than I usually do use today that I got from Melody Wilding in an article she wrote in the Harvard Business Review. And I thought it was just very pertinent to what we're talking about today. So I want to take a moment and just read that to you. In a business world dominated by automation, digitalization, and increased incivility, the need for highly sensitive people has never been greater. In one survey, those who tested higher for sensitivity are not only the most stressed, but they are also the best rated by managers. This highlights the fact that highly sensitive people, when managed correctly, can be among your workplace's greatest assets. And I would throw in there, it also shows that they are more likely to hit burnout sooner and maybe without any outward signs. And back to Melody. Yet the majority of managers not only lack awareness of the trait, but also lack tools to properly supervise, nurture, and retain their sensitive leaders. So there's so much in there, and I kind of feel like I could have written it myself, but I really appreciated her viewpoint on that and noting, the current research that everything that's coming out is just showing really how many benefits there are to high sensitivity in all areas of life, including the workspace. And as a note as well, research is also showing that neurodiversity in general, and high sensitivity is definitely under that umbrella of neurodiversity, can actually produce better results overall. But then, of course, we have to look at whether there's the right support and the right environment, because that's definitely a big factor in our success. So let's look first, just a kind of a little reminder, a recap on some of the benefits of sensitivity, but also specifically how they interact with the workspace. So we do tend to have a high level of creativity and being able to think outside the box, consider things from all sides. So obviously that's very beneficial in the workspace. It helps us with projects and completing things in a different way that others might not do, because we take things in from so many different places. And then we have this creativity idea that allows us to see, oh, what about this option and this possibility? And so that can be very, very helpful. We do have that high level of compassion and empathy, and that can help in terms of creating a really comfortable space within a team or just in the general work environment. And knowing, what other people are needing, that's often one of our skills that can really be rewarded in the workspace. We tend to have that heightened problem solving ability and this attention to detail. So things tend to not, be missed by us when we are paying attention to those things that others either just didn't spend their time on or just weren't even aware of. And then we can problem solve how to create some solutions to things that, again, others might not even have been aware of. We're really good usually at seeing and recognizing all of those little details that other people that might miss, as I was just saying, but also including specific things like patterns, noticing patterns within, say, a team. Well, when this happens, these two people respond this way, but these people respond completely different. And this is how these can become cohesive. Or seeing patterns in relation to things physically that are happening, or a certain project, you see things coming repeatedly and saying, this keeps coming up and no one else has noticed that. But noticing that pattern of consistency can be very, very helpful. And for some of the stuff that I've already talked about, there are various reasons that we tend to be really good with team building, and again, helping with what others are going to need, but also generally looking at the whole scenario as a group and saying, I think this is the best solution, considering the milieu and everything that's happening. And we can step back and see that big picture. And we do tend to be good negotiators and good at influencing because we understand the needs that others have and how things might come across or certain ways to approach certain people on things. And then we do have a tendency to have this focus on equality and kind of finding a common ground, making sure everyone else's needs are understood and met, because that's something that we want ourselves. And again, be able to, understand everything from different sides. Each person is needing something different usually. So how can we bring all of that together from that common space? So first, let's talk a little bit about some challenges, and then we'll go into some things to improve our situation. But definitely, whether you're an employee or you're a manager, you're a business owner with employees, these are some things that can definitely become challenging. So it's good to be aware of them in your employees or within yourself so that you can get the support that you need for these things. So first of all, you probably have been aware of this if you are highly sensing yourself. We tend to not like to be put on the spot, and that tends to feel very threatening, but also we don't have the time for processing. That's one of the things that is key to, or a big part of someone who is highly sensing is this need or desire. It's really a need, though, to process things deeply, and that takes time. So if people expect us to give an answer the second we're given information, that's going to be very, very challenging. So we do need that processing time. And then within that realm or anything else where we're trying to come up with our ideas and we're thinking of all these different options, we can lead ourselves to overthinking and considering so many different possibilities that we can get kind of mired in that, rather than just saying, oh, well, let's go with this one and not consider all of those other ones. So that can get a little bit muddling. And the more clear we are about project expectations or a specific focus of a meeting or whatever that is, the more clarity, the less likely we are to try to figure out all of those potentials, because we can kind of fine tune that a little bit more. But that can definitely be challenging. And we tend to want to be perfect. We have that perfectionistic tendency. So it can take longer than usual to complete our projects because we're wanting to make sure it's absolutely perfect. So some work on our own part to be able to let go of some of that, but for others to also recognize that we really want to put in a really good product. And so we're going to take that extra time to make sure, because we do like those to be just right. And then we do have that tendency to be concerned with what others think. And that might be within a team or what management is thinking, and that can lead to a higher level of stress. And then, of course, just generally speaking, we have the overstimulation or sensory overload experience, and that can be our environment in terms of lighting and sound and energy level and just overall activity in the environment within the workspace. That can be the expectations that people have of us, specific deadlines, especially if those are just out of the blue. Oh, by the way, here's this thing I need you to do by the end of the day. That's going to probably be a little bit challenging for us from all of the stuff that I had just mentioned. So again, being able to have a heads up is definitely helpful. But what we do lead toward that tendency to be overstimulated, which is another reason, as always, that we definitely want to have our good self-care in practice. And then that overstimulation and all of the things we've talked about can definitely lead to that sense of burnout, disengaging from the group, kind of stepping back and being so overwhelmed that they're not participating anymore, not feeling heard sometimes can lead to that, as well as the burnout. But those are some things to just be aware of within yourself. Maybe you've identified some of those and recognized, oh yeah, that sounds like me in certain situations. Or maybe you have highly sensing people that are under you. You can kind of understand where they're coming from a little bit more if we're considering what those challenges can be. But let's talk about the things that can actually help so that we don't get mired in all of the negativity and all of those challenges. So if we can look at our sensitivity trait as a strength and help others to see that it's a strength versus being some kind of an issue or a problem, some kind of weakness, something that we just have to get taken care of so that it's not in the way anymore, something that needs to actually change, but seeing it really as a strength and recognizing what all of those benefits are, as I mentioned earlier, that's really key to being able to create a positive environment. So all of those employees, all of you yourself as a business owner, if you are managing people, that you can really come to that place of thriving and showing your strength in your leadership abilities, because all of that is being honored. So some of the things that can definitely be helpful, both for us as employees or those working with them, is making sure that we always have time for breaks and decompressing. And of course, this is important. Most of the stuff that I'm going to talk about is good for everyone, whether highly sensing or not. But in particular, these are things that really are important and really can help those with high sensitivity. So having those breaks is really essential, because we are these sponges taking all of this stuff in. And so we're processing, thinking, overthinking. We have all of this stuff coming in, seeing it from all these different sides. And if we just do that 24/7, or at least, every single moment of your work day, it's really hard to not end up in a place of overwhelm. We really do need to give our bodies, our nervous systems, the chance to sit back, relax, decompress, sometimes even shift our view, our where our mind is going, let that just relax for a little bit. And then when we have that opportunity, then when we go back on and we're on target, we're that much more focused, because we can put all our energy there again. But if we're just constantly going all day long and we don't have those breaks, then we're likely to hit that wall much sooner than average, perhaps, and definitely in a challenging way that might lead us to not want to do things in the same way, or wonder why we're even there in the first place, or whatever the second guessing can be that will come in. So we really need those breaks. And so if it's you creating your schedule, being aware of that is really important, making sure that you don't overschedule yourself, overcommit yourself, make sure that you've scheduled those break times in. And if you are working with employees, it's really important that you allow for that. And it's really good for everyone to have those built-in break times, but to really encourage your highly sensing people to take advantage of that and make sure that they're doing that and seeing it as a necessity and a way of taking care of themselves so that they can be who they want to be, rather than something that's selfish or, pushed off until the end of the day, the end of the week, if there happens to be time. It's just something that's really, really key to being able to maintain, especially for us in a world that's, so much more with all of that input coming in. So here's an idea too. Melody was talking about this as well, that we could actually limit the number of meetings that we have in a specific day, which is always a good idea. I always recommend this as well. Try not to put too many things back to back. So say you've got 4 hours before lunch and you say, well, I've got those 4 hours, so I can do 3 meetings and something else with this project. I can fit all that in there. But what happens is our nervous system starts to get, overwhelmed, and it's really challenging to go one after another, even if you do have a break coming up, say for, a full hour for lunch or something. Having so much back to back can just really be overwhelming and suck up our energy. So limiting the number of meetings and then how soon they are or how close together they are. But one of the things that she mentioned that I hadn't thought of before, which I think is fabulous, is that maybe you can even schedule one particular day with no meetings. And stepping backwards, it's one of the things I realized that I've done for myself without doing it intentionally. Because I will do that most weeks. I will say, oh, I've got this going and this going. And it's like, wow, I need a time to just do other stuff and not do a networking call or not do a meeting, with somebody that I don't know yet, or whatever it is, but looking at not putting all of those in, every single day, and just having a meeting break day. So I love that idea. And I think it would be healthy for everyone. Of course, we have lots of meetings these days now that everything's on Zoom, but maybe looking at that as an option of saying, oh, on Thursdays, I just don't do meetings. And then you have time to relax, breathe, and you don't have to hurry to something. You don't have to be like right on, 100% present in those meetings. Just in that emotional mindset. I mean, obviously you're on when you're working and you're doing your projects, but it's a very different feeling, especially for highly sensing people who are dealing with Zoom and all of the energy input and output that's happening in those meetings. So another thought to do in terms of the scheduling piece and blocks of time is try to break up whatever your little blocks of time are. So say you block things out in like 2-hour chunks. But if you can shift kind of the focus of what some of those things are, so it just gives more variety, but it also, again, helps you kind of reset in terms of that go constantly. So let's say you have, okay, these first 2 hours are for my, I'm going to work on this project, contacting people and doing emails and, all of these outreach things, et cetera. And then you take a break. So instead of the next 2-hour block, be doing the exact same thing where you kind of get back on the hamster wheel, maybe you shift to the next 2 hours is something completely different, where maybe you have a meeting, or maybe you are preparing for something for the following week, or maybe you're doing some videos or something that's very, very different, different type of activity. And then you have like a bigger break, but maybe like alternating what some of those requirements are, just to shake it up a little bit and give it a different focus for your energy, for your mind, so that everything isn't just that feeling again like you're just on that hamster wheel, just going constantly. And then if you can create time yourself, but also if others can allow this, managers, et cetera, can allow this for each person to have this processing time that I've mentioned, and always having a heads up on something that's coming, whether that's what we're talking about in the meeting, not waiting until the 5 minutes before the meeting. It's like, oh, this is what the meeting's about, but having enough heads up so that we can prepare an actual time for processing, for example, a deadline. If something has to be done by the end of the week, letting people know on Monday that they've got the whole week, and then it's expected to be due, rather than saying, hey, will you work on this? And then waiting until Thursday and saying, oh, by the way, I need that tomorrow. So more of a heads up, that time for processing. But we can do that for ourselves also to, remind us that if we are asked to participate in, a meeting, or you say, oh, I can contact this person, I've been waiting to hear from them. And instead of putting it in like immediately your first opening that you have in your schedule, maybe setting that to the next day, or at least at the end of the day, or something where you have some time to process and prepare and be ready for that. So it's not just seemingly, dropped in your lap. So you have that time to process. And then have really clear plans and expectations, whether that's for yourself and whether it's your own business or whether it's your employees. Just be very, very clear about what is expected from that person, from everyone in the team, if possible, because that's one of the things it's kind of nice for highly sensitives to know what everyone's expectations are and everyone's roles, because they'll sit back and see everything happening and be wondering like, well, what is that person doing? That doesn't seem to connect over yet. So you have all of this problem solving and all of this overthinking that can happen. So if everything is very clear, these are all of the responsibilities for everyone. Everyone knows their place and their role, expectations. That all definitely helps with highly sensing folks. And then when things pop up, highly sensitives tend to kind of know something's up, something's off. They see these patterns. So if they come to administration with it and say, hey, this is something I'm noticing, this is something that's affecting the overall, camaraderie or the functioning of the project, whatever it is, being aware that because we do have this heightened intuition and picking up energy and seeing things from all sides, we tend to be pretty accurate with those kinds of things. So maybe taking an extra step to really listen when someone brings these things to your attention, rather than just saying, oh, it's not something I've ever noticed, so that can't be all that important. But recognizing that and validating that, and then, pursuing it and see what happens. And quite often it's probably something that you'll be glad that you didn't just dismiss. And then some very specific things that could be helpful for the sensory issue with the like sensory overload are accommodations like noise canceling headphones, audio option for if you're doing a Zoom meeting, if you don't have to be on camera and you can be present but muted and off camera, that can really help if someone has like a whole bunch of meetings that day. So having that opportunity is really good. Physically, things like being maybe in a corner desk or up against a wall, so there's not so much activity completely all around surrounding someone, or in a place that's maybe slightly, less active, less dark. I mean, I'm sorry, less crazy lighting. And then just overall, if there can be some kind of control, some adjustment allowed for the type of lighting. So if it's not like flickering constantly or changing all the time, that will be very helpful. So those kinds of things, if there can be some accommodations in the physical environment, that can be really, really helpful. And then always for us, just being as prepared as possible so we don't ever feel like we're, under the gun. And as I mentioned, clear expectations, but that really comes back to that as a person's, in that role, because we do have a tendency to overextend and do other people's jobs because we can. So being aware that this is my role, these people have these roles, I don't need to do anything outside of my role. If I really want to, then I can ask or say, hey, would it help if I did this? And you're not going to put yourself out, then that's fine. But generally speaking, being very clear with yourself on what your role is so that you aren't just taking on all of these things, because you'll see things that are not getting done and you're going to want to take care of them just so that they're done. And you see that they're not happening. So it's really challenging for us sometimes to say, yeah, but that needs to happen. And especially if it's going to affect something down the line that you're working on, you definitely want that to be taken care of, but it's not necessarily our role. So sometimes it's a matter of going to management and say, hey, I think this will work better if we make sure that this takes place or happens. If you want to work on that or take care of that so that I don't overstep my role, because that can definitely be very easy to do. And so ultimately, how do we make this work? How do we make these things happen? Excuse me. We need to be very aware within ourselves what our needs are so that we can, create our environment such that is very supportive to us, but also be able to ask for what our needs are. And so if we are an employee or we are working in a team or there are, other people around and it's not just our business, we can help others, administration, whomever it is, somebody who's above you or working in the group with you, to understand the things that will help you to succeed and to thrive. And ultimately that will help everyone else. So helping them understand that as well. So whether that's using an inventory of high sensitivity and saying, hey, just so you know, this is the way I'm wired, and these are the things, that tend to affect me a lot. So this is what would really help me, and that will help me just be, amazing on, on top of everything and really performing well. And it probably will help everyone else as well. Or being able to have a list of something specific, some specific things, probably more than one, that will help you, whether it's your environment or the way meetings are run, or an idea of, again, like if I could just have 1 or 2 meetings a week where I can be off camera, that would really help my nervous system. And then I would really be able to be on, more often. So being very, very specific, because if we just go to someone and say, hey, this is getting challenging for me, and I really need some things that are different, but don't offer any specifics. If someone's not highly sensing and they don't get that, they're going to be in a place where they say, oh, well, okay, but what else would I do? This seems to be working. And so we need to be able to say, well, these things would make it different. So just having that as a suggestion, as a way to help them understand, so that you're not just being demanding and saying, hey, fix this, without them having any idea. So now, just as a little addition here, when we're talking about workplace, a lot of us tend to be solopreneurs because that works really well for highly sensing people. So a lot of that stuff that I've talked about is really helpful in a larger group or with management. But even in our own businesses, we can use these ideas to make sure that we do all of those things that I've been talking about, like the way we create our schedules and give us our our downtime, all of those things, but also being very clear on expectations of what it's like to work with you. If you do have employees underneath you, and it's your business, you can say, hey, these are the expectations I have of everyone. This is everybody's roles, including mine. And, if there's discrepancy, if there are any issues, whatever, come in and talk with me, but be really clear about what those expectations are and what the needs are, and just be willing to give yourself every single thing that you would do if you were working with a highly sensitive employee. So we tend to say, oh, well, it's my business, so I have to do everything. I have to be everything. I have to put all my stuff aside so I can make sure this happens so that I'm successful and everything works well. But ultimately, just like if we're working in somebody's company as an employee, if we don't take care of ourselves, we're going to hit that burnout. We're going to not be on top of our game because all we do is go, go, go. And we have to have those breaks. We have to have that self-care. All of that has to happen very specifically. We just have to make sure. So paying attention to am I expecting more of myself than I would an employee? And what am I doing for myself to give myself the heads up or the step up so that I can really, truly thrive? All right. So some ideas about, making our sensitivities the most beneficial we possibly can in that work setting. And next week, I will have a special guest to talk more about neurodiversity in the workplace and inclusion. And so I'm looking forward to that. And as always, it's been great having you here and being on this journey toward thriving through sensitivity. And as always, I'd love to chat with you directly. So you can reach out and connect with me. The best way is through Linktree. I am on LinkedIn, but you can find me on Linktree, just with my name, Tammy Goen. And I have, free ebooks, and all of my resources are there, all of my contact information. So that's the best place to reach out to me. So I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.